Hello. First of all, I would like you to forgive my appearance. I have recently moved. I moved about 6 weeks ago, and since I moved, I've been having one allergic reaction after the next. So that's why my lips are all blackened. I know I look like a smoker, but I don't smoke at all. It's just where my skin is very angry, and I've just been having one reaction after the other, one form of dermatitis again, then we thought it was gone, and then another. So I'm reacting to many very different things. Luckily, this reaction is not as severe as the one I had previously. That was bad. I looked like I had some sort of skin, ancient, archaic skin condition. So this is not so bad. So I have missed filming the videos. Obviously, moving was a big thing, and moving when you're creative can be a bit disruptive because you have to pack a lot of things away. You're constantly thinking about packing, the logistics of it all, people meeting you on the other side, payments, and all sorts of things. So finally, I'm on the other side now. I'm feeling very inspired. I'm feeling a lot more relaxed. My dogs are here with me, which is amazing. And it all went off without a hitch, well, apart from one little bit where we got stuck at an airport somewhere. But anyway, I wanted to go back to talking about characters and books and inspiration and all that good stuff. So today, I wanted to talk about characters breaking your heart. So have you ever cried for someone who didn't exist, like a character you had in one of your books who you sort of dreamt up one day and just started writing about, but you found that the more you wrote about them as the pages went on and you went deeper into their story, you became very, very attached to them. I wouldn't necessarily say attracted in any way or it falling in love, because I don't know. That might happen to some people, I guess. That's never happened to me. But I have grown very, very attached to characters that I've created. And I just wanted to talk about that today because I think we don't focus on that enough. We sort of think that we write the characters, we create these people, and it's very easy to say goodbye or it's very easy to let go. And yes, I will be the first to say that writers often cry about their characters. When I wrote The Dwellers Beneath the Arches, that was one of the first series, a fantasy series I completed. One of the characters in that series, a boy called Boise, he, as I wrote his story, he was from a very impoverished background. And as I wrote his story and I delved deeper into it, he was in all the 3 books. So The Dwellers is a 3-book series. And as I went deeper into his story, I found myself forming a connection with him in terms of the way he was living, in terms of issues he was having at home, in terms of how society viewed him as a whole, how he was a young boy trying to survive in a very, very in a very wealthy part of London, and how a lot of the wealthier people saw him as scum, but his people saw him as scum as well. So it was a very, very interesting experiment with Boise. But I found that when he actually met the Dwellers, and that was what made me begin to change my view about him, because he became very, very human to me. And one day, as I was writing the last book in the series, and there was all this stuff happening, and everyone is running around, and there was all the chaos and the fear, I wept for Boise. I cried. I didn't realize I was crying at first. I was just writing, and obviously I was writing by hand. I was just writing, and I realized that there were a few tears. There were a few wet blotches on the paper, and then I realized I had tears going down my face. It wasn't like a full stream, but I felt his pain and I felt his frustration, and I just thought, my goodness, life is so terribly unfair. There's so many ways in which these characters can take on a life of their own. They become very human in our eyes. And I think for each writer, you can let me know if I'm wrong, there's always that aha moment where this character you're creating just comes to life for you and they're a real life person. And for me, it was one scene in the book where because Boise has a younger sister and he has a mother, and his mother is a bit of an addict. Well, not a bit of an addict, she is an addict. And he's always trying to keep his sister protected and away from all that. And obviously he's dealing with the dwellers and everything, because the whole purpose of the dwellers is they are people, there's a world beneath London, and he, Boise, and a few others are tasked with finding this fantasy underground world, right? And with all the our world issues that come along with that. Boise is very protective of his younger sister because he wants to keep her away from the life he had to live as a child. And he comes home one Christmas. This is the first Christmas where the dwellers were found. And his mother's in a drunken stupor. She doesn't know what's happening. And he gets into a screaming match with her. And I recall that having a big impact on me because years ago I used to work with kids in care, and I didn't realize how much working with these children had such an impact on me, because they all had, a lot of them, a great deal of them had parents who were addicted to one thing or the other. And I think I wrote Boise with that in mind. I didn't realize I was the inspiration for it, but I think that was me channeling my emotions about all the stuff I'd witnessed with these kids and their parents. And that was when Boise became very real for me, because he could have been another teenager that I'd had to work with, or another teenager that I'd had to drive around, or someone I had to sort of supervise when they were on a visit with their parents. So he became very real for me at that point, as he was arguing with his mother. And I think that was when I started to feel his grief, and that was when I started to connect with him on a very, very human level. I found myself stepping into his shoes and sharing his burden with him, which I would not always say is a good thing, because I was sort of thinking, well, if this is happening with him, imagine what that would do to me. And I started to put myself in his shoes quite a bit, and I started to feel the weight of what he was really going through. And we don't understand the impact that sort of thing has on us, because it's so profound and it's very human. And it's very real as well. Boise faced so many challenges through the books, through the 3 books. So in The Dwellers, there's Asher, Jonathan, Sarah. They're the 3 best friends on the cover. And then there is Boise, and Boise has his little gang of a gang he's in charge of. And I do believe, although Asher, the main character, Asher went through a lot, I think Boise got his fair share of absolute hell and pure torture in the books, now that I think about it, because he had to do so much more, and he was working around people who were rather sociopathic and who were very, very angry, and people who had no empathy whatsoever. A lot of the characters that Boise had around him, the people he worked with, even people in his family, there was just no empathy. They were very sociopathic, including his mother. So there was no one he could actually connect with. And then he lived on an estate in London where trauma was all around. Everything that had happened in that estate, he had seen, it had affected him, and it had also affected his outlook on life as well, and him as a person. And it wasn't until he met Asher and the Dwellers and everyone else that he realized that he could be a bigger person, he could serve a bigger purpose. He didn't have to be this young, poor London kid from a council estate. He could be so much more than that. And I would say, out of all the characters in the Dwellers, I wouldn't say who the other characters, but Boise is one of the main characters in which writing him took an emotional toll on me. It was very, very draining, and at the end of the writing sprints, I was very exhausted, and I had to have a time out. I had to go and sit down, have a break, and then get back into writing as well. So writing Boise, I do believe, had the biggest emotional impact on me, and obviously took its toll. And then you write the first book, I wrote the second book, I wrote the third book. In the third book, obviously the third book was the last book in the series, I realised I would have to say goodbye to Boise because the story was coming to a natural end. And that was sad because the book was ending, my relationship with him was ending. The connection I had with him was coming to an end because it couldn't continue. If I continued writing the books, the connection would continue. And because the books were coming to a natural end, they would stop there, and Boise would forever remain 17 in my head. And my life would go on, but he would stay the same, a 17-year-old boy living in London. And for me, that was, I don't know if the word is sad, but saying goodbye to him, giving him that farewell was bittersweet. It was nice to come to the end of a book series because my editors were chomping at the bit to get it edited and out there. But at the same time, I was saying goodbye to a character that in my mind, I completely understood. I come to understand. I come to have a lot of empathy with. And I come to feel very protective over, as silly as that may seem. So even though I wrote him in a lot of dangerous scenes in the books where he had some really, really bad scrapes. And, really, he had some really bad scrapes. That's all I'll say. I still had a connection with him, even though I wrote him into those dangerous and really chilling scenes. And then after the entire story is over, when, you've written that last line, because obviously everything I do is writing, you have that lingering feeling that, it's over. I hope he's okay in the books. I hope he's fine. I hope he's doing well. And I hope he stays protected, because all the characters, apart from the dwellers, ended up pretty okay, but a lot of the characters went through a huge emotional toll and huge burden as well. And you just hope that, they're doing okay, because you have come to care about them. Kind of like a sibling relationship or whatever, whether you're cousins or friends or whatever, but you do come to really deeply care about them. And you have that lingering feeling long after the book is over. And I find that, correct me if I'm wrong, when you finish writing a book, especially with your characters, you cannot just move. You have to sit there and ponder. I just tend to sit there and stare at a wall, and I think that is me removing myself from the book world and all my characters and the world I've created into the real world, because that is the only way I can come back to myself slowly. I can't just finish writing the book and then get up and then go cycling or go roller skating or whatever. I have to decompress. I have to just de-stress and sit there. I could sit there for 2 hours, but I just need to be quiet. I need to be silent. I need to be still, because writing these characters is a very, very emotional process that no one really talks about. And that is why these fictional characters, they really, really work their way into your head, into your life. You find yourself crying about them, you find yourself getting sad, being morose, but you don't really know why, because you start to form a connection with them, no matter what colour, what nationality, what religion they are. You start to, and that's part of human empathy. So if you're a writer or a reader, whatever you are, have you ever grieved for a character, or found yourself thinking about a character long after the book is over, or you've closed the last page, or you finish typing your work, or you finish watching a series. Let me know in the comments. Okay, bye.